Well, hey, welcome back, everybody. We wanted to hop on here, do our high council meeting because of some crazy stuff that's happening in Hollywood. And just like the Jedi of old, we are here to overreact to everything. So I'm going to play this real quick clip, and then we'll introduce our guest.
Do you want to reboot Star Wars and actually have Luke Skywalker, Solo, and Vader, and you do your version of it? Everyone would say you're an idiot to try, but that would excite me.
Oh my God.
So there is a part of the clip that has gotten the Star Wars community on end. That was Matthew Vaughn. Before we get into any of that, joining us today on our second High Council meeting, we've got Brandon from Clan Brandalorian. Brandon, how are you, man?
Doing good. How you guys doing?
Doing all right.
Good deal.
And then we've got, returning to the High Council since he passed and became a master last time, passed his Padawan trials. We've got Eric back. Eric, how are you?
Doing good.
I'll pretend
Having me back on, guys. I'm really excited.
I'll pretend I just haven't spent 12 hours with you. So
New interactions, new day.
Yeah, there we go. So, and then of course, all the way from Belize, the man himself, Big Jack.
Hello there.
It always sounds better when you say it with that accent, man.
For real. Yeah, it's a little je ne sais quoi.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so like we said, there's a small clip of what's been going on. This was about an hour long interview on the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast, which this guy's been getting a ton of good clips out for Star Wars fans. We'll play the clip. We're going to play the 2 minutes. About roughly 2 minutes of this interview that has to do with Star Wars. You heard a part of it. And then we're going to come back and we're going to dive into some stuff and see if you think Matthew Vaughn is a crazy man or he's here to lead Star Wars in a new direction.
Film that was formative to you early on. Would you ever do Star Wars? Would that be tough to say no to?
Yeah. Well, now not so much.
It's been tainted a little bit. It's a little.
Well, it's not just been tainted, and I'm not going to. Yeah, I'm not going to go there. But I would say, for me, doing a Star Wars movie is to play with the characters that I loved. So if they said to me, "We'll reboot. Do you want to reboot Star Wars and actually have Luke Skywalker, Solo, and Vader, and you do your version of it?" Everyone would say you're an idiot to try, but that would excite me.
Oh my God! You have a death wish. That's so scary to even contemplate.
No, but it's fun. Why not? Bond? Do you mind Bond?
That's true. That's true.
You know, you asked me who's going to play the next Wolverine.
That's true.
Why are these characters so hallowed that from '77 you can't redo it for a new audience? And that's the story. I mean, Star Wars is the Skywalker family.
Yeah.
All right, and that's where I think they've gone wrong because they've forgot that it's and it's done brilliantly in the TV, but it needs an epic new film, and that's what I would do. I would go, right, everyone's going to go batshit crazy, but let's bring it on, because if you want a new generation, make the movie for them. The old generation can hopefully make it well enough that they go, okay, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. Is there a trend?
Interesting.
All right. So, yeah. I had to listen to it. I had to listen to the whole thing yesterday because I saw the reports coming out. I think, Brandon, you and I talked a little bit on Instagram, and you said it came out like last week. This interview came out.
Yeah, I didn't see anything about it until over the weekend, and I had just seen something on Twitter about it, and you don't believe everything you see on Twitter, but I was just like, okay, whatever. But then once you hit me up with the idea, I was like, oh shit, this is actually for real. So, yeah.
Yeah, so, all right. So we got a couple questions. We'll start off with kind of let everyone know where we stand with Matthew Vaughn. And I'll start with you, Eric. Have you heard of this man before today?
So I had not heard of the man specifically. I've heard of his movies. I had to actually go look up what he's done before. And I realized that he probably did this interview to promote his new movie that's coming. So then, there's that piece of me that's kind of like, well, maybe he did this, just to get the pop of that movie. But I hadn't heard of him specifically, but I had heard of his movies before.
Okay. Well, so you said you looked him up. Do you have a favorite Matthew Vaughn movie? If you looked at his...
I think he just did, whenever I looked it up, it looked like he did like The Kingsman, and then he's got this new Argyle movie coming out, and I've seen bits and pieces of some of the Kingsman movies, but not all the way through. So I can't say I have a favorite.
Okay. And then I think I sent you guys the link for parts of this. Were you able to listen to the whole thing? Like, did you get it in context, or was that the first time you had seen it?
That's the first time I had seen it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Perfect. No, that's good. I kind of get the action. And I'll come over to you, Brandon, with the same couple questions. Have you heard of Matthew Vaughn before all this happened?
Nope, I have not.
All right. Did you look him up out of
I did.
curiosity? Like, what is okay? And did you see anything that you're like, oh, I love that movie, or man, I hated that movie, or
Yeah, I think I saw something about the X-Men and Kick
yeah,
Ass.
X-Men First Class.
Yep.
Yep.
And but I haven't seen those movies. But I mean, I've heard of them, but I haven't seen them.
All right. And then, were you able to listen? Did you listen to the whole podcast, or just the snippets that we sent out?
Yeah. So when I saw the idea on Twitter and then got your email, I was like, okay. I was like, I'm finally hearing that. But then I actually watched the video. That way I could see some expressions and see how the body language added up to it. So I kind of bounce off of Eric's idea just to maybe promote future things. But I mean,
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know how serious it is.
All right. All right. And then, okay, so Jack, I'm sure you have, I mean, probably, I know you haven't been looking up too much with the internet you have down there, but have you heard of Matthew Vaughn before today?
Yeah, only because obviously he's an English director.
Yeah, I wondered if there was. Yeah, okay. And do you have a favorite film of his that he directed or produced?
Yeah, so there's no end of films that he's done. I think Layer Cake was one of them. Lock, Stock, Two Barrels was absolutely quality. But Kick Ass is one of my favourite ones he's done.
Yeah, those were pretty good. And then were you able to listen to the entire podcast, or is it just the clips that we've shown so far?
Yeah, no, just a few clips.
Okay. All right.
But yeah.
I do suggest everyone goes and listens to it, because you can kind of, you get a little bit more out of it when you see his whole, ebb and flow. Because I went on an emotional roller coaster on this thing with this guy, liking this guy, not liking this guy. For myself, I had heard of him before. I've got a guilty pleasure. The movie Stardust, man. I don't know why, and I hate to admit this out loud, but I love the movie Stardust. He's got Henry Cavill, Charlie Cox in it. Like, I think Claire, I can't think of her last name. She was on like MTV shows and stuff like that. But and then of course X-Men First Class,
Brilliant film.
all the Kingsman movies.
Brilliant films.
He has pretty good repertoire. So I was like, all right, let's see what this guy has to say. And then, of course, like Eric said, he does have the that new movie coming out not until February. Yeah, Argyle, which looks pretty great, by the way. You should check that out. If I remember, I'll put a link to the trailer for it. But all right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to dive into some of these questions here. Okay, so we've seen the clip. We know where we all stand with Matthew Vaughn. So my first question, we're just going to jump right out of the gate with it. Do you agree or disagree with Vaughn that it should be rebooted? Is that the problem with the franchise? It needs to start all over? Brandon, we'll start with you on this one. Unless you don't.
No, I can get it.
All right.
So some of my favorite movies, when they get reboots, it's like it's almost 9 times out of 10 not good. It's nothing like the original. Especially if you like the original movie, you don't want it remade. I just kind of see it as a way to get easy money. It's obviously a big name. It's going to be a good market in Hollywood. And especially coming out the gate with the whole writer strike and all that, everyone's going to want to start pumping content. So whether he is looking at his that podcast as future, recognition to get to his new film to kind of promote it in some way, it's just too easy, especially in Hollywood, trying to pump out new stuff. So, I mean, you take what you want with Disney Star Wars, but I mean, I like most of the things that have came out. The sequels, it's sketchy writing. It's not processed. It's just rushed. And I just feel like with a reboot, the mad Star Wars fans at Disney are just going to be like, well, it's messed up already. Just might as well just make it. So at the end of the day, I don't think anyone's going to be satisfied whether a reboot is made or not. But me personally, I don't think it's not broken, so it doesn't need to be fixed, you know? So that's just kind of how I look at it. I'm not mad about it, but at the same time, I just don't think it's necessary.
All right. Yeah, cool. Jack, what about you, man?
Well,
Where you fall on this?
They already did a reboot. I think it was called The Force Awakens. So we're seeing how that went. So the proof's in the pudding there. But no, they don't need to reboot it. Exactly what Brando was saying there. I can't think of a film that's been remade that I thought that was actually pretty decent. But yeah, it's just a money spinner. I won't be totally against it if I'm totally honest. But the movie would definitely not have the same effect. Even the little things like the special effects and how they were made, going back to our recent podcast as well, and even the effect of Mark Hamill keeping that secret about Vader for so long, you know, it's really not going to have the same effect at all. I think once if it did get made, the novelty would wear off pretty quickly, and there'd just be, I won't say uproar, because it would inspire another generation, 100% it would. But yeah, no, I think leave it as it is.
Okay. Eric, reboot or leave it?
Yeah, so I'm on team leave it. I get where he was coming from, you know, like trying to kind of market, I guess, or kind of reintroduce this world that we've all fallen in love with a new audience. But I think retelling the same story can kind of get lost there. Obviously, messing with canon and things like that would be difficult. So I think what he's looking for, especially with the type of movies he makes, he's looking for like a big splash, like really exciting things to do. And I think that'd be really hard to accomplish with rebooting, you know, one of the biggest sci-fi movies and franchises that we've seen.
All right.
Try to get a whole new spin on it, I think would be really difficult.
That would be weird. Yeah, I think I'm probably with you guys. Now okay. So I be honest, when I read this, I'm like, what the heck? Like, who this guy thinks he is? You know, I sit there and look at his stuff, and he's not saying he wants to reboot it. He's saying if he was given it, you know, people are like calling for this man's head, and I'm like, everyone needs to relax. All right. He said if he got the opportunity, he would do it. And then I made this Instagram post. I tried to pick the craziest, outlandish, like, people. I love actors, but I tried to find. I think I picked like Javier Bardem for Han Solo. I think I had Denzel Washington for Obi-Wan Kenobi. You know, so, and I was doing it kind of like as a joke at first, and then I started thinking about like, would I want to see Denzel in there, like doing something pretty? I mean, he's got some chops, right? Or Javier, like he's a good bad guy, you know, whatever. But I kind of agree with you guys. Leave it alone. And I know we'll get into some of our listeners' reviews. We've got quite a few responses, but yeah, I say leave it alone. I think though, and we've talked about this, and Brandon, we've had you on there. We've talked about Ahsoka at length. Introducing a new galaxy, isn't that where you reboot Star Wars if you want to?
Yeah, I think that's not a bad point. Yeah, I mean, if you look at what Marvel's done with like all these things where you go into like different realities and stuff, like honestly, there could be a world in which like maybe they release a fun little movie or something on the side that's like not canon, or like maybe in a parallel universe or something. He could have fun with it in that way. But
all right, yeah, I don't know. Like I was just kind of wondering, you know, talking out loud here. Is there any world where he is right though? Like, is there anywhere, you know? Would it survive? I think you guys kind of mostly answered that question though, with an emphatic no. You know, remakes. Brandon, you said you don't. If you liked the movie the first time, the remake you probably weren't too keen on.
It's just going to be way too much judgment.
Yeah. Can you think of a movie off the top of your head, remake or reboot that you have enjoyed? Like any of you guys? Because I'm thinking of a couple. Because I'm thinking of like the Batman series. Like, I mean, as a kid, I went and saw Batman, Michael Keaton Batman, and I loved it. I sat through the Val Kilmer and the George Clooney stuff and was like, huh? Then we came back around to, oh my
Christian
God, why
Bale.
can't I think of his name? Christian Bale, thank you for saving me. Gosh, right? I'm probably one of the odd ones who I liked Ben. I liked the grumpy old
Hated
Batman. Robert Pattinson,
Hate
right? I liked him, but are
Pattinson.
those reboots? What about Spider-Man, Jack?
Oh my god, I
All the
knew you was
different
going to say that.
Spider-Man.
No, Tobey Maguire is the
Yeah.
one. That is it. We'll leave it there. Is it Alex Garfield? Oh my god.
Andrew Garfield, yeah.
Andrew
Yeah.
Garfield.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, God no.
So,
And I'm only just getting around to liking the newer one as well.
It's
oh
interesting that
yeah.
you were bringing up like comics and stuff, Jimmy. It makes me think like, I don't know, maybe if Star Wars had originally come in as books or comics, maybe that would have been more likely to happen, because like with comics, like they always bring in new creators and new ideas to kind of take different spins on these different characters. So yeah, I don't know. Like with movies, I feel like that's really hard though, because everyone goes to see it, and then like the masses are kind of like, well, they get really confused. You know, like people would be like, wait, I thought this happened in the old one. And people, I feel like, could get really confused really quickly.
Yeah.
But all those are like comic book characters that we're used to seeing them change and have new stories and things like that. Whereas with Star Wars, we don't see that very often.
No.
All right, yeah, that's a good point.
But you
Very
hit
good
the
point.
nail on the head, because there's a whole new canvas now for all to do whatever they want. You look at the recent Spider-Man movie with Into the Spider-Verse. That did
Excellent.
an excellent job of not losing people. You look at the Marvel films now. I'd like to speak to people that have watched the Avengers and then have come on now and watched like Loki. I haven't got a clue what's going on and who's where or what timeline we're in. You know, it's crazy and messed up. So you look at longevity and money and stuff like that. What's the one other program that's lasted for decades? Star Trek, because it's gone from planet to planet. It's non-stop. There's no just one galaxy. They've never said that. It's just been going on and on and on and on. You know, the only thing I think they'd messed up on was probably going back in time on one of the Star Trek movies again that threw me off a little bit. But apart from that, longevity-wise, it's got the life in it. It's had a new crew, so a new reboot. It's not all around one particular family. You know, you've had a new ship pretty much every time.
Yeah, they did reveal new USS Enterprise like almost every single movie. It seemed like the new Enterprise coming into the docking bay. All right, okay, very good. So he had an interesting comment. Matt Vaughn had his comment where he said Star Wars is only about the Skywalkers.
Yeah, I think he's almost there. I'd almost agree with him to an extent. However, recently, I'd say since just before, well, probably after the Rise of Skywalker, really, with the Mandalorian and the Ahsoka, now we've gone away from Skywalker completely to an extent. Obviously, we've seen Luke come back in the Mandalorian, which was a nice surprise. Everyone loved it. But you look at Ahsoka, we've not really seen much of the Skywalker storyline. Yes, we've seen Anakin a little bit, but there's been no mention of Luke, no mention to do the Chosen One or anything like that. It's just, he was the master, that was it, move on. You know? And I think that's what it needs.
Yeah.
It does need that. It does need that refresh. You know, we need to get away from it. And I think that's what The Last Jedi did perfectly, in the sense that in the last part of the film, you know, you've seen the little kid with the broom. All right, so there's another story out there straight away. You know?
Yeah. Brandon, what about you? Do you think that Star Wars is only about the Skywalkers, or is about the Skywalkers, I guess?
I feel like that is the blueprint. So if you kind of like look at a timeline, you know, straight across, I kind of like to flip the Star Wars one vertical, straight up and down. So you pretty much have, you know, episode 1, 2, 3, and then you get like stories like Rogue One that are kind of off to the side, but it's still in track with what's going on in the Skywalker saga. And then like the Mandalorian, that ventures off to the side a little bit, but you still get remnants of the Skywalker saga. But it kind of gets messy, you know, especially, you know, The Force Awakens, it's still on track, but it was brand new. And you're like, where is this going? And I feel like that's why it had so much success, you know, compared to the prequels that came out. Because, I mean, I was just a little kid, so I don't know how everything worked at that time. But obviously it was awesome. But with the sequels, you just kind of dive into it and don't know what to expect. And that's why it's kind of messy. But, I mean, it still tries to dip back into the Skywalker saga. But that only opens up more doors, and it shows how big the galaxy actually is when you go off to different stories and different characters and timelines, per se.
All right. Eric, what about you?
Yeah, just to hop on that, I think that's kind of what Star Wars, I think, was kind of eventually destined to do, I guess you could say. Like, we've got this really big story. We're kind of in the middle of all of it, but there's literally a whole galaxy out there of different stories to tell. And there are a lot of like main like ideas and characters, I guess, that are still around the galaxy, like the Jedi and even with the High Republic, like this idea of like bigger things trying to unify people, or I think there's stories that we can explore outside of the Skywalkers and it'd still be valuable and fun, because I feel like if you're Star Wars is all about the Skywalkers all the time, you begin to run out of content, which is something that people begin to complain about with Star Wars is, like, well, we're seeing the same characters over and over again, or they keep bringing people back to life because they're still trying to keep the Skywalker part relevant, when I think eventually we have to be able to move outside of it. And with the High Republic, I think they're starting to do that really well.
Yeah, I would say, yeah. I'm not sure. I had to watch that part. I watched the interview yesterday, and then I came back to a couple pieces. I just watched that clip a couple times, and I couldn't tell if he's like Star Wars is only Skywalkers, or like I wasn't able to really decipher. I think he was a little bit caught off guard a little bit. It seemed like, but yeah, I don't know. I love the Skywalker stuff, but I'm also not sad to see it end and kind of maybe split and go some different places. And I wouldn't mind, there being a Skywalker later on, or even if the Dawn of the Jedi or whatever, that the beginning of the Jedi, if there's a Skywalker involved. But I mean, the one thing I did like about, and I don't like a lot about it, but The Last Jedi was the fact that being a Jedi didn't mean being a Skywalker or a Kenobi or a Palpatine. And of course they came back around on that in the next
Change their
movie,
minds.
but change their minds. But yeah, so all right, okay. So sounds like we love the Skywalkers. They're the backbone of Star Wars. But maybe it's time to branch a little bit from it. So I'm very cool. Here's my next question. No, we have a script, we follow it, behind the scenes magic. But I'm going to throw a curveball. Here we go. If you were in Michael Vaughn's position and they came to you and they said, hey, you can do whatever you want in Star Wars. Anything. I mean, you're basically in charge now. Do whatever the hell you want. Where are we going with this? What do you think? Are you going to stick with canon? Are you going to go back to Old Republic? Are you going to, what are you going to do? Jack, you already have a plan?
So it'd start with Rey waking up in the desert, saying, "I've had this crazy dream." Then getting
There was
blasted.
this guy named Kylo.
then getting blasted. And then it'd switch straight to the young lad with the broomstick, and then go from there.
All right.
That's awesome.
That'd be my reboot complete.
All
right, reboot complete. Eric, what about you?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this. I think about it sometimes. Just watching some of the old movies and stuff. Like, if I were a director, what would I want to do? And growing up with the prequels, the Jedi were always the big thing. The Obi-Wan Kenobi was like the guy. Whenever my buddies and I would play Star Wars out in the yard or the playground, we were always playing Star Wars and being Jedi, grabbing sticks and do that kind of thing. So I would definitely probably go a Jedi story of some kind. I think maybe like High Republic stuff now, like that's kind of the era I would have done, or similar to Jack, maybe kind of rechange the sequels a little bit, or and I know at Celebration they talked about kind of restarting Rey with a new like training of the Jedi and stuff. That's probably where I would have started. Rebuilding the Jedi Order kind of thing.
All right. Very cool.
Yeah.
What about you, Brandon?
Well, I have two. One will just take 2 seconds to talk about, but Quinlan Vos gets his own story.
Yes.
And he's just a big, cool dude who gets justice. But the real one, I think I would start the Rey. It is what it is. I enjoy 70% of it, while 30% I'm just kind of like, eh. But give me Mace Windu comes back, and this is what episode 7's about, and we get some maybe like I don't know if it's true, but the rumor of George Lucas having like Darth Talon and Darth Maul is kind of like the big bads, doing their own thing, and they're like the main antagonists. But I do want to see some justice with Mace Windu and Boba Fett. Like Boba Fett still has his arc where he comes out of the Sarlacc pit, he survives, but he ends up running into Mace Windu somehow and gets revenge on him for what happened with Jango. I think that would be really cool. But then just, give Darth Maul the show, just because we get to see him a little bit in the Phantom Menace. And if it wasn't for Clone Wars and Rebels, we would still be like, yeah, he just fell down a chute.
What a waste.
And, thinking like that, I'm like, yeah, I can't really dig into the sequels, but then I have to think, that's not real. It's not Darth Maul and his apprentice getting beat up by an old Luke, and then here comes Boba Fett. Like, I still hate Jedis, and I'm getting, it's Boba Fett, but just some cool stuff that could have happened.
It's a good shout there too with Mace Windu, because he catches a lot of flack now. Like, imagine a character arc he could have, like realizing all the ways that he messed up and things like that, and like on the growth there. I think that'd be really cool. Yeah,
You think Mace Windu would admit to having screwed up though? His character.
The thing is, like, I don't know. Maybe he comes back even more angry about the whole situation. Maybe tempted by the dark side kind of situation. Yeah, you're right.
Oh my
just
gosh,
fully tapped into the dark side.
It's right.
Yeah, I think if I had my own way, I wanted to do something with lots of Jedi and lots of Sith. I remember seeing, I can't remember what the opening is, but it has like Bane and all those guys fighting each other. It's animated, and there's just like thousands of red sabers and green and yellow and blue, and that's one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Yeah,
and I want to see something with big battle. That's why I know Jack talked about a possible like coming together of a multiple Jedi that are existing. Like we talked about, like Quinlan Vos being around, and Cal Kestis and Rey and all these people. Like if they all come together as one, that would be pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Like I want to see a lot of Jedi doing a lot of things with today's technology. We really only got to see Attack of the Clones when they're in the Geonosis. They didn't really do much. Mm-hmm. Right? They just sat there and they're on the blue. You can see the blue screen basically, and it's just kind of a bummer. I would love to see like High Republic stuff or more Jedi.
Another idea actually what I'd do. Remember the N64 game Shadows of the Empire with Dash Rendar?
Yes.
I'd do that as a movie.
That'd be cool. Right.
That'd be sick.
I wouldn't mind a Dr. Aphra movie, like an Indiana Jones and Star Wars, but with the female lead. That'd be pretty cool. Okay, so kind of getting back to the stuff we talked about. It was a little curveball for you guys. Are the Star Wars characters too hallowed to reboot? Like, he brings up this point, and I know, like, we love these characters. Obviously, we do podcasts, we listen to podcasts, we listen to each other's podcasts and YouTube channels, and we read. And I walked in on Eric today, and he's reading the High Republic book during his plan. But so we are the four of us are invested in Star Wars. Are these characters too hallowed to reboot? Because wouldn't it be fun to see more adventures with Han, Luke, and Leia? Because wasn't that like the big gripe about the sequel trilogy where we never saw those three together? You read the comics, they're off on all these adventures. Do we want to see that crew together? So are they too hallowed to reboot? And are there other franchises or characters? Because they talk about it a little bit and more of it, because they talk about rebooting Wolverine. Who's going to play the new Wolverine? Who's going to play the new James Bond? And these are characters that we just come to terms with it. Like there's a new one, it resets, or it's the same person but it's different. So what do you guys think? Are the main characters too hallowed to reboot? What makes them that way, I guess, too? What makes them so special?
They're too iconic with the stuff that they've done in their times and the things that they've done in relation. Look at Batman. Not everyone was a fan of Ben Affleck, Robert Pattinson. James Bond's the same. It takes a while for people to grow used to him. But for me, of all of the things and the people being sort of rebooted, there's one character that's been rebooted and he just doesn't feel the same to me as well as Chewbacca. It's I don't know what it is in the even in Solo as well. Obviously, it's slightly different. It's more younger in Solo anyway. We know that, so it sort of looks natural. But come Force Awakens and stuff like that, he's still, to me, the same Wookiee from Solo, if that makes sense. Like he hasn't aged. He's not any slower or anything like that. So yeah, I don't think it would work with a human character at all.
Okay. Eric, what do you think? What makes these?
Yeah.
Are they too hollow to reboot?
I think, especially right now, with the original actors who had played those characters, getting up in age, and like Carrie Fisher passing away, like obviously I think a lot of people are very sensitive to those characters, and like the role that those actors played in our lives, outside of the movies, and us falling in love with it. So I think it would take a long time for people to kind of be willing to accept those characters kind of being rebooted. Even with Solo, they're catching a lot of flack, and with all the characters they were recasting. I love those movies personally, but a lot of people had a hard time seeing certain actors as these characters and things like that. So I think it would be a long time, have to be a while before they tried it. But they may be able to do it in the future. Who knows?
All right. Brandon?
Yeah, I feel like you definitely have to give it some time, just because I feel like with Solo, that was one of the biggest things, was like, obviously Childish Gambino didn't get too much hate for replacing Billy D. Williams just because he's a cool guy of this generation. But,
the same flow that Billy D had back then.
Yeah, just that suave. Yeah.
It's a perfect example of getting it right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it's so hard to, strike out with those characters, because the guy who plays Luke in the Book of Boba Fett, before he gets the deep fake on him, he kind of looks like Luke, but it's just like the actor for Han in the Solo movie. It's that I feel like some of the I feel like some of the actors got most of the backlash for not even that Solo was crappy and it had two different directors and one quit. It was more of like, this is not Han Solo. But I mean, from when I saw it the first time, I was like, oh yeah, it's Han, but it's not Harrison Ford. But it's just kind of like a different idea. But I agree with Jack and Eric. It's just kind of, you can, but it just kind of has to take some time. It can't be struck right away.
There's no way you could do it older, down the timeline, older, if that makes sense. Doing them younger, you'd probably get away with it to an extent. Doing it older, not a chance.
Because even thinking about Star Wars, they did it, or not Star Wars, Solo. Like I said, I really like that movie. I think they did a good job with it. But some people have a hard time grasping it. So doing one fell swoop, like doing all these characters, like all brand new and stuff, I think would be a lot. But even I was just thinking, like Obi-Wan Kenobi, I wasn't paying attention to Star Wars whenever that happened. Like how people, whenever people found out that Ewan McGregor was playing Obi-Wan, like was that a huge issue?
I don't remember. I also wasn't as dialed into Star Wars. I mean, to be honest with you, like, are you guys old enough to have gone and seen that movie in the theaters?
Yeah.
Like,
I think it was. I think there's too much hype around the whole movie. If I'm honest, no one really cared.
Okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Plus, you knew you were getting a young version. We never seen a young Alec Guinness. So I think they could kind of.
But the Anakin guy, I can't remember the kid's name. He got absolutely hammered.
Oh yeah.
Lloyd?
Yeah, Lloyd.
Oh, Chris. Yeah.
Something Lloyd.
Oh yeah, he did something.
Got absolutely hammered as a young child.
Mm-hmm.
Which is crazy because that was before social media, so you can imagine what it would have been like. Him and Ahmad Best. I mean, think about what who's the character that plays Rose Tico? Kelly Marie Tran. How she got just
poor
annihilated on, people. I mean, and people obviously they've got some issues they were taking out on her, I think. And if you don't like a character, the actor is not the character. The actor is just doing the job that they're paid to do. So
you imagine if I forgot her name now, if the young Leia had gone sideways.
Oh man.
Oh yeah. So
Vivian Blair, I think her name is.
Yeah, Vivian Blair.
I think you guys are kind of on. We have this conflict with Ahsoka, right? We never seen Ashley Eckstein play Ahsoka, but without her voice, I loved that Ahsoka series. I mean, every episode I was high on it. Maybe not on Rosario every time, but it still was something about not having Ashley, and that's just a voice actress. So, but I didn't really have a ton of problems. Like I know people don't know this. Solo is my favorite Star Wars movie for whatever reason. I just absolutely love it. I think it's because Chewie just whooping butt. Like I finally get to see Chewie doing everything they've always talked about, ripping people's arms out of their sockets and just planting people. Like I want to see Wookiees, all WWE down there on Kessel. But yeah, I didn't have a problem with that, but I don't know. I see where you guys are coming from. They are pretty hallowed, and it's not like Eric, you said earlier. This isn't a comic book. This is a movie franchise, and everything's stemming from that, and not from comics that are naturally rebooted whenever they want to. They come out with a whole nother thing. So yeah, I think you guys are onto it. You guys, real quickly, is there any other franchises that can't be touched? Like I could think of like Harry Potter. Like that's another big one.
Lord of the
I don't
Rings.
think they can come back and Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I'm a big Lord of the Rings guy. So like even the Rings of Power stuff, like I wasn't just because
Yeah.
that franchise meant so much to me growing up. Like I couldn't do it. But you mentioned Harry Potter. I was going to say my wife is big into Harry Potter, and she was telling me that they're thinking about making like an HBO Max series about it. So
Mm-hmm.
like redoing all of it again.
There's
so
money there. There's money there.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. Imagine if they redid The Godfather.
oh yeah, that would. That's a good point.
Oh my goodness, that would be that'd be kind of crazy.
Mhm.
So anything else, gentlemen? We're going to dive into our listeners' thoughts, but I want to give you guys one last shot. If you have anything else that's on your mind, thoughts about the interview overall.
No, I think
feel
Eric hit the nail on the head straight away. It's good for publicity because again, it's got the internet talking straight away. Everyone's gone to what the interview's about. Shock horror. He's promoting a new film, so very clever. Very clever.
Yeah, he seems like someone who likes poking the bear, like just messing with people. So I think that's where he was good. Watching the interview, it was a very short segment of the interview, so I think they were just doing it for fun, like on the side. But it could be fun.
Yep.
Yeah. He openly admits he would never do this if it wasn't for the writer's strike. Like right at the beginning of the interview, he's like, "Yeah, I never do this," because the guy was it Josh Horowitz says, I'm shocked to have you. And he's like, "Yeah, I wouldn't typically be here," and I kind of went on a roller coaster with this guy. Like I love a lot of his movies, like I said about Starter. Like that's one of my if I'm just in a mood, I just want to relax and have a fun movie. I'll throw that in. But I don't know, Brandon, you also watched it. He had a high opinion of himself, and I don't know. I guess do you get to that position in life not feeling like you're the man, like you're, I don't know, but
I think he was just trolling a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, it's probably an excellent way of putting it. If I were y'all, I would go and I'd watch it. It's only 53 minutes. It's a good interview. He talks about a lot of things. And then, of course, that movie that's coming out. But so we put out on the social medias. And if any of these strike you guys or you want to talk about them, just stop me. So our friend Jamie Richards, he says he's an attention-seeking, spoilt little child. I should have probably had you read that one, Jack. Kathleen O'Brien says, no thanks. We talked, and the question was, should Star Wars be rebooted? Adrian Chorley, everyone wants fresh stories with new characters or more stories with new characters we already have. Why on earth this guy thinks it would be better to have the same stories retold with the same characters but with new actors is beyond me. It's almost like he came up with the daftest Star Wars opinions possible to get some publicity. So yeah, he's kind of feeling like you guys, like he just said this to get people. I mean, you say anything about Star Wars, and here we are, a couple days later.
Yeah.
Joaquin Zapata, I would not watch it. I saw the first one 20 times as a kid.
Nice.
Nothing could ever be that good again. Nope. Maybe do something in animated, he said. And I responded to his, I was like, you saw this 20 times. He goes, yes, all my lawn mowing money. So we're gonna have awesome. Joaquin on the show. He's a counselor in our high school. Anakin Crespin from Facebook, he says Star Wars doesn't need a reboot. They could always just do the old Republic instead because it's so wide open. Joe Overton Pin, no, you can take it in a different direction without rebooting what is there. And I also kind of think that's like whenever they said all the Legends books, like all that stuff's not canon anymore. People had a meltdown in 2014, I think they came out. They bought it in 2012, and I think 14 they said that's all Legends now. People had an absolute meltdown. Old Man Rex said absolutely none of them are right. He was referring to the actors. I intentionally put people I thought would get people fired up. So
Good job.
I just typed in like 100 most famous actors and actresses, and this thing popped up, and I grabbed them. Johnny Ola from Starboard File says he needs to focus on his own steadily declining franchise instead of worrying about Star Wars, which is doing very well without him anywhere near it. So nice. Johnny O, Starboard Files, coming in hot. Ed Friday says, leave it a blank alone. We're a family-friendly show, so you can add whatever you want in that blank. And then the last one we got here, Daryl Armstrong says, nope, pass on the reboot. Bring your new ideas for future Star Wars shows. And I kind of agree. I think that that's kind of where we could go. So, but fellas, thank you guys for coming on. I appreciate it. And we'll hopefully have you guys back on again sometime soon. But anything else? I'm giving you one last chance. If you have anything else you'd like to say, I think we covered quite a bit.
No to the reboot.
No to the
that seems to be
reboots.
a
No to the
common thread.
reboot. No to the reboot. No to the reboot.
Right. Looking at all the comments, I think a lot of people have very similar ideas, and that like there's just so much more to explore than the same story. I think that's a very common thread. Maybe in the future, like maybe we won't, like maybe do a little something fun on the side, but like there's just so much more to explore in this universe. So like we should probably prioritize that.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I want to thank Eric and Brandon for coming on. Brandon, tell everybody where they can find you real quick on all your stuff.
Oh, yeah. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and X. I don't really post too much on X, but TikTok and Instagram mainly at Brandalorian66. And then, of course, on YouTube, just type in Clan Brandalorian. I go over some Lego Funko reviews, and then I also do lore and some theory videos as well. So pretty much everything's right there.
You just did your top 5 favorite ships, right?
I did. And that... it was so funny because the first hour or the first 12 hours, it was sitting on 4 views. I'm like, man, come on. I use the right hashtags. I use everything. But then the next day it started picking up a little bit. So yeah, I want to start doing the top 5 series, just a whole bunch of random stuff. I've already done the top 5 lightsabers, in my opinion, canon, and starships as well. So some other stuff will come soon.
That's
awesome. All right, well, check him out on all those socials and on YouTube. Give him some love. Hit that like button and subscribe to him. Eric, are you on social medias anywhere? People want to talk to you?
Unfortunately, not. No.
No.
I'm involved in the Facebook group, but I'll be watching in there and participating there. But
all right, and for us, everything Explore the Force. You want to email us with your opinions. You're mad at us because we left something out. exploretheforce@gmail.com. YouTube, everything, podcast, everything is Explore the Force. Hit us up. Let us know what your thoughts are. We're going to read them off next weekend. And so we usually kind of sign off with a little quote. So hopefully this is both your guys' second time here. So Eric, you got a quote for us?
No, and just the same old, this is the way.
This is the way. All right. Brandon.
Batu. Grogu says that.
All right. Jack, what do you got for us this time?
I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold.
All right. And
so
for all
sinister.
of us, we have spoken.